Welcome back to Red Hawk Media. Today we're taking a look at DVD Studio Pro, and it's all about designing our menus. I'm going to show you a little bit around DVD Studio Pro before we get going here, and then we'll jump into creating our first menu, setting up our tracks, and establishing some chapters, basically building the architecture of your DVD. Let's start with the graphical outline here. We've got our menu and we've got our track. This is the default setting for DVD Studio Pro. This is what it will pop up with first when you first open it. One of the things I'd like to point out here is usually in this default setting you've got your menu and track, and the menu is set up to be first play. Now if you're creating a very simple DVD, you don't want a menu, you just want it to start playing the moment you plug it in, you'd get rid of this menu and you'd make the track one the first play thing. That tells the DVD player to bring that up first, skip right to that track and start playing it with no menu, nothing. Okay, so that's kind of a quick, simple way if you want to show a friend like a video or something and not go through the whole hassle of making a menu. For our purposes, though, we're working on menus. Down in the bottom left-hand corner here, we've got all of our assets. These are all of the different things that we're going to be using to create our DVD. Our menus, pictures of the menu, the overlays, any files as far as the movies that are going to go on to the DVD. They're all in here. In the bottom right here, we've got our timeline. You've got video layers, audio layers, and such. Pretty much looks exactly like Final Cut Pro. We're pretty used to seeing this. Now up in the upper right, you've got your workspace here. Right now it's set up on the menu viewer, so we can go through and make all of our changes to the menu. All right, let's go ahead and get started. To begin with, I created two menu JPEGs that I'm going to be using throughout this process. And to give you an idea of what those look like or some of the things that you might be able to do, here's the first JPEG, okay, which is our standard background, a little bit of a gradient in there, we've got a texture, and then we've got the play button here. Okay, I've only got the play button on mine. You're bound to have more buttons on yours. Menu, different tracks, maybe scene selection, things like that. Okay. Now, the other picture that I created here is actually the overlay. Now, the overlay is what it's going to look like when you actually mouse over the button. So when I go to the button to select play, this is what it's going to look like. And I'll show you some things here that I learned along the way with this. Okay, so let's get started. I've already imported those two pictures and one video file here. I'm going to show you how to import. I've got to bring in another video file to make this worthwhile here. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of browse through to find another video file that I can use for this particular DVD. So I'm taking a look through, and I'm going to use this one. .movs tend to work really well with DVD Studio Pro. The other format that works really well is MPEG-2. So I go ahead and click Imports, and it's going to begin the process. Now, if it is not giving me the green light here, it is probably in the process of converting the file. So if I've got yellow for my status here, that means that it's running a conversion to make it work with DVD Studio Pro. If it just rejects the file outright, it means that we'll have to convert it to another format, such as Apple ProRes 422 or MPEG-2, which are kind of the standards for DVD Studio Pro. I've got all my files in here now at this point, so let's go ahead and take a look at how all this works. To begin with, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my base layer from my menu, and I actually drag that in here, and I've already done that at this point. Now everything else is imported, so I can start dragging things to where I want them. Very first thing that I want to actually play on my DVD or have for an option on my DVD is our little Red Hawk Media thing here. So I'm going to highlight the video and the audio, and I'm going to drag them to track 1. Once those are in there, you can see now on the timeline that I've got my video in there. Now the timeline starts off pretty stretched out here, so that you can make some little changes to it and all that. These things are synced up currently, my video and my audio, so I don't want to move those at all. Otherwise they will become out of sync, and then you're going to have like a delay on the vocals or voice or music, something like that. We don't want that. Okay, the second thing that I'm going to have play on my DVD is the Red Hawk Media commercial. So I'm going to highlight both those files here and drag those up to track track 1 again. And you can see that they're laid in there one after another now. You can see the overlay and the commercials side by side. Now let's make it so that we can actually get to some of these items here. First step of that is I would need to create some sort of a button. Now you're going to have a menu. You may have a menu and a sub-menu. So you may have a bunch of different menu screens that you're working with. I'm just working with our basic, everyday, ordinary menu. So to begin with, I'm going to go to my menu, and I'm going to click on make sure it's selected over on the left-hand side here. Then I can come over here, and I can click and drag, and you can see this is my overlay that's sitting beneath there. Now, if that's not set up for you yet, I'll show you how to do that, but this is button 1. Okay. One of the things that I noticed is if you have only one button, it automatically by default starts off as being highlighted with the overlay. So if you don't want that to happen, you can always create a second button and do it like that. And I'll show you what that looks like. A great way to test your menu to see how it's working at any given time is you can right-click on the menu and go to Simulate. Now I can see that it's actually highlighting as I skip back and forth between the two buttons. Like I said, you're going to have more than one button on there, so you're not going to have that issue. But you can see that it's bringing out the overlay that's underneath here. When I select it, when I click on it, it brings up yet another color, and that's the yellow flashing that I've got there. Okay, so now these buttons need to be synced up and actually send the DVD to a different location. So I'm going to click on button 2, and we're going to do all the settings for that. Underneath the style, you can see all the different things. You can see the selected highlight. You can see a bunch of different stuff there. Under advanced, nothing to see really there. That's all for setting up your remote control, how that's going to react to your DVD when you push certain buttons. The colors are basically the normal state of the button, what it's going to look like by itself. The selected state is what it looks like when you actually click on it or mouse over it. And then the activated state is the yellow. Like I said, you can change those to whatever colors you want so you can get your own effect. Okay. Now, to actually set up the button, we're going to go up here, make sure that we're on button 2, which is our main one. And for target, this is the important part. I'm going to go to target, and I'm going to tell it exactly what I want it to go to. Now, I've dragged everything into the tracks, so I'm going to go tracks and stories. And I'm going to go to the Red Hawk overlay as my very first thing. If I want, I can just click on track and it'll play all the way through. Or you can choose them separately. Okay, so I'm going to go to track right now. There we go. Now, when I click on button 2, it should go to Red Hawk Media Overlay. If I want to test that out, once again, I come up here and I right-click on the menu, simulate it. And then I come in here and I select play, and it seems to be working, so it takes me right to that. Now, I want to set up a few things. What's going to happen when this is done playing? Where is the DVD going to go to? Is it going to go into the next chapter, or is it going to restart? So I'm going to do what's called an end jump and set that up. So I come down to my chapter 1 marker here, and I'm going to click on chapter 1 very carefully, and I'm going to see that chapter 1, the end jump is not set right now. Okay. Now I've got another video that's right after this, and I don't really have any other buttons to click on, so I want this to play all the way through. Okay. So I'm not going to set the end jump at all. That means that by default it's going to play from one track right into the next. I do, however, want to make it so that if I skip on the remote control, I can go into other tracks here. So I just clicked up in this gray area, and I just dropped in a new chapter. Now, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to line up that chapter according to where I want it to actually begin. And this is a great time for you to go ahead and shrink your menu down again so you can see exactly what you're doing and what you're selecting. And then come back to your chapter setting and fine-tune that so it's exactly where you want it to be. And that's pretty close to the beginning of that particular video there. Now, chapter 2 is a different deal. I've only got 2 tracks in here, 2 chapters. At the end of that, I do want something to happen. I don't want the DVD to just stop. So I'm going to click on chapter 2. And over here again is the marker. I can see it's called chapter 2. End jump's not set, but we're going to fix that. We're going to have it come right back to the menu. I've only got my one menu. So when it's done playing, it's going to come back here, and then I'll have the option of playing it all over again. Now, if I wanted to, if I have a simple DVD, no menu included, I can always make it so that my end jump goes right back to the first track and it starts playing that again, so it continuously loops. That's kind of a handy feature if you're looking for something that'll just keep going and going and going in the background. You never have to worry about it. So I'm going to set mine to the menu though, and that is about it at this point. Now you're bound to have more chapters and more tracks that you're going to be dragging in there. You're going to have more menu submenus that you'll be working with, but all of the same target features are exactly the same here. You can target different menus, so if I bounce from menu 1 to a menu 2, I can make that a target. So if I wanted to, I could add on a submenu. So I can go add menu, drag that over here. On menu 1, let's say working on that. Let's get back to where I can see menu 1 here. Oops, grabbing the wrong thing. Command Z that. And let's get to the menu. There we go. So I'm on the menu tab now. Take a look at that. And let's say this button 1, I want it to actually do something. Maybe I want to go to like scene selection or something like that. Now that I've created that second submenu here, I can make my target, go to menus, and I'd say, okay, I want to go to menu 2. Okay, and that's going to be all set up. Of course, on menu 2, now I've got to create a back button of some sort so that I can get back to where I originally was. So I would have some kind of font or text that would be in here. This would be all pre-created in Photoshop the way you wanted to. And then on here, I'd make my target back to menu 1. That way I can bounce back and forth between the two. And so if I go ahead and I simulate all this, let's simulate the first menu. I've still got my play button. I've got this menu button over here, which I would ideally want some text for, but we'll click on it anyway to see how it works. And that takes me to my second menu, which has nothing on it right now. And down in the right-hand corner, I created the other button that's going to take me back. And that's how it works, using submenus. So, good luck with DVD Studio Pro, and thanks for joining us again. Until next time.